Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This episode is brought to you by The Wellness Paradigm, a holistic health coaching company shifting the way that women understand and heal their bodies. Through bioenergetic testing, functional lab testing, and functional nutrition, we uncover what traditional approaches often overlook so you can stop guessing, start healing, and finally feel like yourself again. No more one size fits all protocols, just real answers, deep rooted healing, and the clarity and confidence you deserve to feel incredible. It's time to shift the paradigm of women's health. Now, on to the show. And good afternoon, Liz.
Hi.
So glad you're here, and I think we'll have a beautiful conversation. I know Liz is really a wealth of knowledge, and I think, as you call yourself, the OG in this, health world. And I think she's going to beautifully merge, the health and spirituality world in her own really beautiful way. But she is a wild feminine catalyst, a coach, speaker, retreat, and group leader. And she also was an owner of a thriving wellness business for 15 years, and takes this really interesting quantum multidimensional approach to healing. And I can't wait to kind of dive into what this means and, be able to guide some of our listeners to maybe a new way of thinking about healing. So, Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So I'd love to know a little bit more on, your journey and how you kind of got into this line of work. I know you've been in this, health world for quite a while, but I'd love to know a little bit more on that journey.
The journey. Gosh, the journey has been I feel like it's been a lifetime journey, as far as getting involved in. I feel like my sweet spot is has to do with spirituality and health, the physical. I've done so much somatic type of work and healing in my life. I started my first big awakening in that space happened when I deep dove into becoming a yogini. And then that led into I'll become a massage therapist. Oh, I'm going to get my doctorate and become a chiropractor. Oh, I'm going to be a specialist in this area that's very specifically focused on the quantum field and how it organizes matter in the body. And how you shift those patterns through multidimensional spaces of going backwards and forwards. And so, it was just following the threads of passion. It was following the threads of just knowing that I'm here to contribute and knowing that, what I hold so dear is that this is just a journey of soul. And it's all about being aligned with soul. And that really is it for me. And so that's been my own path. That's been a lot about what I teach and what I share inside of these groups that I lead and, all the stuff that I do. But yeah, I guess I said I was laughing as an OG because I'm kind of I'm over 25 years in the space at this point, of all of this happening. And it's wow, it's I guess I'm there.
Well, and I'm sure, we were chatting a little bit about this, right? It's just how much, I think I've been in the industry 15 years and how much it's changed in that amount of time. And, in the last few years, I personally have dove more into, quantum physics. Now I do bioresonance work. And, I feel as if it's just now starting to creep where people are starting to embrace it a little bit more. There is science backing up a lot of this as well. Well, there always has been, but it's becoming a little bit more, mainstream. So I'm curious on your journey into doing this a lot earlier than where it was maybe as accessible to people, like it is now on Instagram and social media.
Yeah, well, the work that I used to do in my brick and mortar that I had was it was pretty mind blowing, to be honest with you. People would be I
don't know.
Look, you can watch me do the work.
Yeah.
It always looked like I was orchestrating strings of energy through the field and doing all this wacky stuff. But I'm just look, you just got to experience the work. I can tell you all the neurology that happens behind it. This has been researched. UC Irvine has a massive study on this work that whatever. And so I used to be just come.
Yep.
If it's not right for you, it's all good. But if it is right for you, guess what? It's pretty life-changing. I was just on a call this morning with someone that was my client 17 years ago. And she's I know. And she still receives the work because it still enhances her life in such a big way. It's still it's one of her main things that she uses to make sure that her life is staying on purpose and on track with her soul's mission, right? And she's I just know that I came into that meeting because I was supposed to meet you. It was a business meeting, right? And so, yeah, as far as I remember people, would be whoa, I've never seen anything like this before and that kind of thing. And I'm just yeah, it's different. But guess what? The universe is made up of like what? Like 90, is it 99.5 or 95% energy? So we want to be addressing the energy fields first, always.
Mm. Yeah, literally, I literally just got off a webinar talking about how like I bridge science and soul like together, and that's so true. Is we miss this huge energy piece in this healing journey, right? And a lot of people think, oh, it's woo, it's very woo woo. It's like, no, actually, it's science. It's this is who we are. And if you're not addressing that, I mean, I'm sure I'd love to hear some stories of your clients. It's like when you address this, things move quicker, like so much quicker. And I know when clients do scans with me, it's like, I don't really understand what this is, but I just understand I feel better. And that's what that matters, you know? So tell me a little bit about, when you're doing sessions or when you're doing this work, like what does that work look like?
Well, the work that I do now is very different than what I was doing in my brick and mortar. It's
Yep.
very, very different. I only do that work now when I'm working privately with people or if they're in my live events. So other than that, it's on the shelf unless I'm pulling it out for those events. But the work that I'm doing now, so here, let me give you a little background. So I had this wellness center. I saw thousands of people inside of that practice, and my clientele was primarily women. The
Mhm.
business is called Shine. And so this was all about shining your light. And so I basically would be like, oh, like you come in to see me, I clean you up, I dust you off, and I send you off, and we do
Mhm.
deep, deep work. This work was not for people that weren't ready to do the deeper work. So what happened was is I saw like I said, lots of women in my practice, lots of very successful, entrepreneurial, driven, type A, like give
Oh
me
yeah.
give me the cutting edge on how I can be better, feel better, be more in love with myself, and feel more, like all the things. And this is what happened is that I was like, wow, there's a limit to how much wellness a woman can experience
Mhm.
inside of the cultural paradigm, the cultural hallucination is what I like to call it,
Mhm.
of what is health.
Mhm.
I believe in my paradigm is that a woman she needs to reclaim the radical, untamed parts of herself in order to fully experience health. Because in my world, the amount of health that you experience is the matter of how much can your signal, your soul, be expressed into the world. So if you have a signature that is meant to make an impact and you're not able to do that, you bet there's going to be a consequence to that. We get
Mm.
depressed, we get sick, we attract an accident, whatever it is, because it's energy. It's all energy first. So when we are living our lives distorted and we're trying to fit into some sort of paradigm that is not meant for us, that is generally patriarchal by nature, like most entrepreneurs go through step one, women, they create a business from the masculine.
Mhm.
Burned out, they're exhausted, and they freaking hate the thing that they thought they loved the most. Like that's step one. I mean, I can go on and on about like what happens from there.
Mhm.
What I have found is that, and it came as a straight transmission because I started working in this space between where sexuality and spirituality intersected. And
Mm.
so inside of my work, because like I've said, it's like I've spent 20 years in the quantum field. And so when I'm working in groups and that sort of thing, there's a whole other intelligence that will fill the space. We're talking about invisibles here. We're talking about the quantum field. And so this one specific retreat I was leading in Carmel, California,
Mm. Love it.
I mean, I can tell you exactly where it landed. I was out, we had this beautiful house. We had two houses on a mountaintop,
Cool.
17, 18 women there. And we were out and we were doing this process on this insanely beautiful stone like deck patio thing overlooking the ocean. And it came in right there that I was like, oh, women will never be well until they embody what it came in as is the holy wild. And that is that's like my thing. That's my IG handle, whatever. And what
Mhm.
that is that's embodied emotionality. When a woman can feel the depths of her being and the range of who she is, all the way, the up, the down, and start to merge with those shadowy parts of herself and learn how to mother herself through those moments, She then will start to have an experience of her life where she's not afraid. When we start clearing those underbelly patterns, women they can become even more resilient, and not resilient because they had to. Resilient because they're so full of self-love and self-approval. So it's embodied emotionality. They also had to have the experience of it's embodied emotionality, but also how is she using her creative forces of her natural sacred feminine to create her life? Is she using her, what I would call her sacred feminine, in order to manifest, create? It's like, if you allow the feminine to do what she's going to do, she's going to zig and zag all over the place. She's going to create over here. She's going to create over here. And then she's going to get to the mountaintop and she's going to be like, oh, wait. I want that mountain. I changed my mind. I want that mountain. Like, and really allowing like that fluidity to move through herself, but also recognizing that she must be fortifying that creative part of herself, because it's the muse. It's the creative muse that then the feminine can start working through. Like, most women I know and work with, we know when we have like the muse working through us and spirit working through us versus the one where our brain is trying to like figure it out. Right? We don't tire when the muse is running our lives. We tire when our brains are running our lives. Right? And the other part is having embodied sensuality and sexuality. It is our superpower to be in our pleasure. It is our superpower to turn on all of our senses, what we see, what we smell, what we hear, what we feel. It's our superpower. It's like literally releases dopamine in our brains when we are sensory pleased with what's around us, what we're experiencing. It's very important. Like, it is important to take the time to fortify your senses. Beauty. Oh my God, we love beauty. And then also having the ability to straddle the 3D and the 5D, like knowing that we are spiritual creatures first, that we have this thing called intuition. We have this thing called the body knowing. Like, I always talk about the body as being the oracle. Like, we have these knowings that come with us. And so we have to really learn to work with that. I call it mystery. It's like we work with mystery. So when those 4 elements are actively being engaged and they're actually like almost communicating and working together, that's when we have the full-bodied experience of spirituality. And because life is a spiritual expression of the skin bag, that's what I always call it. Like, this is our skin bag. Because of that, when we're using all of those natural gifts that we're given, that's when we become fully potent in who we are. And I've done so much empowerment work, and I don't even use empowered anymore. Very rarely. I'm like, no, it's your potency. It's your potency. How much radiance are you experiencing? It's radiance that lights up the room. It's a woman's radiance. It has nothing to do with her beauty, her age, her size, her shape, or any of that. It has to do with that self-approved, like, I give myself all of this. I am going to flirt with the realities that I want. I'm in so much approval that I can't not have a great time in every aspect of my life. It's that. And so when we get into that part of ourselves, that's when we are well. That's when we are well, when we are fully experiencing ourselves, fullness, and like expressing it out into the world. It's like that whole thing where you're receiving and giving, you're expanding and contraction. That is wellness in my mind. And a lot I saw it, I went through it myself, but our bodies will break down if we are emotionally congested, if we are not expressing our truth. Like, why are women's thyroids like crashing, right? Where is it located in the body? What chakra is that with, right?
Yep.
So that's why I see as like health is multidimensional, and it's just kind of like, I do want to say this, it's like functional medicine is what has been a life changer for me. I mean, we don't have to go into my story around that, but like, it was so important for me to utilize all of those resources in order to, bring my system back into the level of the signal, like to get my signal strong, because it had been so broken down from being out of alignment. So it's like it just all works together so well. But my work is so much about the feminine being like really juicy and embodied and expressed, like that's my thing,
It's so interesting. I work with a lot of, energy healers, and I always joke I pull people from the 5D to the 3D a little bit more to the 5D, just understanding that there's two worlds and they make up, your health. It's not just one thing.
It's definitely
This is so much deeper. And, it's interesting with this feminine kind of energy or embodiment. I mean, I feel like as females, we shut that down and don't actually understand how to tap into that. So how do you get clients to, one, understand that that's driving some of their symptoms, right? It's one thing, a lot of people want to blame it on my thyroid, my hormones, right? My parasite. It's like, yeah, okay, all of those things matter. And when you clear a lot of that, your channel can be a lot more open, right? But how do you embrace that and help clients embrace it and understand that, like, this is one of the big barriers to them not feeling well?
Well, it just comes up so naturally that when I'm working with people intimately, so that means one-on-one or in a retreat setting, but like in groups, and I don't know everybody, like everybody's history, and I don't know them that intimately. It's hard for me to say, but I'm always bringing that in. I mean, that was a huge part of my entire background. It's like, it's always floating in the background that when someone tells me I've got this, and this going on, I'm kind of like in my head, I'm like, okay, like in my clinical practice, I saw this lead coming from this, or trauma. Okay, so then when I used to work on people's physical bodies, and when I bring them into my spaces where I am still putting my hands on them, it's like very often I can tell when the pattern started. I'm like, oh, what happened when you were between the ages of 9 and 11?
Mm-hmm.
What happened? Did something happen with your mother? Was there a betrayal? Whatever it was, there's like these traumas from micro to macro. If they're not fully experienced and somatically experienced, and not sitting in a therapy office talking about our feelings, I mean, getting them out. I mean, like the 2-year-old expression of a child is so intelligent because they haven't been shut down. They feel their feelings, they have the tantrum, and they get back on the playground, right? And they're good. They're all good. But if we did that, we would be considered crazy. However, in indigenous cultures and cultures that were not westernized and patriarchal like ours is, you had ceremonies for this. You had rituals for this. Sundays, you would gather and you would eat, and you would say, God, what are you grieving this week? It became a normal part of the conversation about what parts of you are hurting. What hurt your heart this week? What are you carrying that's not yours? Where have you taken on responsibility that is not yours? All of those types of questions that have to do with like how energy, it comes in and it distorts us emotionally because we haven't been able to feel the emotions that we need to feel. So much of my work, because of the somatic background, is like, like sometimes in my group, I have a group called the Holy Wild Sisterhood. And we meet every other Friday morning for an hour. And sometimes I take people through a somatic healing. Sometimes we do quantum work. Sometimes we do sexuality work. Sometimes we do, it's like this whole melting pot of what is the path of healing, because there's always so many things that we can look at that are, your expertise is the body, like you're doing that. And then like, this is the other piece. And so, and women on top of it, we must have community. We must have community that can fully see us and amplify us. Not the kind of thing where we can be held in our darkest truths, our hardest moments, and be witnessed in that. That is where the healing happens. And that's another thing. Even though when I had my office in California and I had my whole center, I worked in groups because I believe that we heal in groups. And I still believe that, I rarely do private one-on-one healing sessions. I do in a certain capacity, but I'm more about like, let the group witnessing you do the work, because it works. It works. My burlesque teacher, I did burlesque a decade ago. She was like, Not every woman wants to be looked at, but every woman wants to be seen. So having that be, the truth, I think the piece around embodied emotionality is the thing that makes most women sick, because they can't speak their truth, because their voice has been so minimized their entire lives from either their family of origin, their boyfriends, their husbands, the culture at large. And I always say that the first crime ever committed to a woman in many women's lives is when she's told to hold still and be quiet, settle down. It's the first time that her emotions are watered and dampened and told that she's not okay and that she better tame it down. So that's the first distortion. And so then every woman who's like my age, I'm in my 50s, we look back at our lifetime and we're like, okay, so that's happened like 900 times, like in one way or another, right? So, so undoing all of that is the most liberating work you can ever do.
I joke with clients, but I also think it's one of the hardest things. It's so much easier to be like, stick to this nutrition or go and move this way. But it's like when you start addressing really old sticky patterns, it's not that fun always.
It's
It's
not.
not comfortable, and I fully believe that that's one of the things that is going to get you past, your sticking point, your health journey. But a lot of people can't get past that. So how do you guide clients through that when they're feeling, resistant, to maybe that kind, or maybe uncomfortable?
I've shepherded thousands and thousands of these sessions, and so each one is uniquely different. But
Totally.
it really is honestly about knowing what questions to ask
Mm-hmm.
and when to just let the field do its work. So
Mm.
holding space for somebody and shepherding through that moment, loving them through that moment, giving them safety in that moment. That's when the healing happens. That's when
Yeah.
they come to themselves again. You know,
That space is so important. I think that's what's so important about coaching in general, whatever container you choose to be in, is it's so many people don't realize that the healing is just in the expressing and, letting yourself feel. And I always say you have to heal to feel, or you have to feel to heal.
feel it to feel it, right?
Yeah, and so it's like, some of that healing is not necessarily in like you getting the perfect plan. It's you talking about it and, going through a lot of this is healing in and of itself. And I know I personally had so many breakthroughs, just being able to just talk in a safe space about things that a lot of the world doesn't get,
Yeah.
it doesn't understand, Um, which is what's cool about what you do too, is it's just like it's a safe space for people that want to explore this, that don't feel safe in what we consider quotation normal, you know
And it's abnormal.
yeah.
There's so much abnormality happening that because of the distortion of such a patriarchal culture. Like one of the things that I love to do, like in my groups and stuff, is I love, the first question I ask women is like, "What's on your heart today?"
I feel like that opens a can of worms for some people.
Good. Let the worms out.
Yep.
What's on your heart? So, I mean, I love it when I have a handful of people in my life that open with that question with me. Because when it started to come into my life, I'm like, wow, this is life changing, And so it gets real really fast. And, vulnerability is the feminine superpower. When we are able to speak the truth, even if we are whispering the truth that is coming from our hearts, we become so powerful because we can withstand anything when we know we are standing and shaking in our truth. We can take criticism, we can take the setbacks, we can take all the things because we know our own self-love so deeply. Every time a woman taps into that level of truth and vulnerability in her body, she is building her superpower of self-love.
Yeah, and that's such a big one, right? So I think as women, we don't realize how much we don't embody self-love. We think we love ourselves. And then, when you go through how we actually talk about ourselves and, it doesn't always align. That's a big barrier to that we have no idea we're holding on to, or that's holding us back rather.
I mean, like if we're talking to ourselves as if we're our worst enemy, If we're criticizing, I mean, like, would you talk to your little girl, your daughter, or someone little that you love? Like, you didn't go to the gym today. You said you were doing 5 days a week now and you didn't exercise, or, you took the day off and you just did in pleasure. Guilty, 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 guilty. It's like all of that programming that we get to come back and just like love ourselves up and be in full approval. Just full approval. And like once we get it, but the self-love comes first and then we get approval. Self-love, approval, self-love, approval. And then when you can approve of all of you in every dimension of your life, you're a different frequency in the world. You're approving nothing, but you are attracting everything. There's nothing to prove. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like you're so congruent with you. Like, you are good with you. You look in the mirror and you're like, man, sister, you are hot stuff. You're doing amazing. No, you're not going to do it perfect. It's going to be a hot fucking mess. Sorry about the F-bomb. But you're going to be a hot mess. That's how we do it. It's messy. It's chaotic. It's like, yo, like, yes. But if you're in approval and you're looking at yourself going like, man, you're doing a great job. You're amazing. You did all these things. You took care of your family. You made the meal, did the business, like you're doing it. You're rocking it. We don't do that. Like, what if what if the entire world, like every woman in the world got up in an agreement, like I'm pledging to this. We got up and got in front of the mirror for like 5 minutes and we were like, oh my God, girl, you're crushing it. Like, woo! You can do it for your best friend. Why not you? So much of this has to do, I believe, with like the path of self-love. And like, as we get bigger in our expression, the bigger the distortions you're going to get. Like, for like my women who are just like, I've heard this 100 times, like, I feel like I am living in a box. I feel like I am caged by my marriage. I'm caged by my business. I'm caged by, friends that don't really get me. And I'm, like, I've heard this hundreds of times, right? And I'm like, oh, we need a bigger box. What does that mean? You need to feel more first. You need to get in real touch with like why, like you're aware of what's going on. And so why haven't you had the energy to shift that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because you have all these stories going. Okay, great. That's where your identity has gotten all twisted up and contorted. You think you're supposed to be this way, but your truth is you're way over here. Right? So we need a bigger box. We need a bigger playground for you to play in. We need like more expression, more embodied emotionality, more pleasure, more aliveness. That.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge missing puzzle piece, and for so many women. So it's cool to have, as I said, this like a space to embody that and feel safe to embody that, right? Now, if somebody wanted to tap in more to this, this feminine, this self-love, just, tap into a different side of healing, because they probably have done a lot of the things, before, probably quotation, all of the things, and still feel like something's missing, right? What would you tell them as just, one or two steps that they could take kind of in the right direction, to help them move forward?
Get into a community right away that has what you want.
Yeah.
Right away. Skip the one-on-one work. Get in with other sisters, because sisters take you higher. Always. We amplify each other. We sit in a room together, and when one woman shares, we're like, oh my God, me too. Oh, feel so validated, whatever. Or you see a woman that can move her body in a way that expresses the depth of her soul and her sensuality through that, and you're like, oh, I want that. I want that. Find and let it be somatic. Like, find something that is emotionally and body based. Like, that's a first step, because once a woman gets back into her body, she's on the right path. But if she's disconnected from her body, it's all going to be heady. But once you know your body and you know how to move it, and so like to access different parts of yourself and to feel different emotions in yourself and to actually move them through you and alchemize them, you're in a different playing field. Mm-hmm. So that would be my first step. Find a community that has what you want. Go to retreats, get in, sisterhoods, get in your memberships, whatever it is. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can have access to this now, but don't do this alone. You read a book and you'd be like, oh, that sounds really cool. But when you're in a room of 100 women, that are embodying what you want, you're like, oh my God, I got it. I got it. The transmission in the field is right here. The resonance in the field is right here. I got the frequency. Yes. And like, this is not a one-off thing. I mean, like, that's something I've seen too, where it's just like, don't just go to like one event and get all turned on and then go back to your life without any support. You know, like, get in something that's going to be an ongoing process, because you're going to zig and zag. That's how we do it. Up to the top of the mountain, we go sideways, we go, oh, and then we finally get there. And that's what it'll be like when you're sitting at home on a Thursday going like, oh my God, I feel so flatlined. I felt so amazing at the retreat. I felt so amazing in the group. And now I'm like, here I am and doing my life. And I'm like, I'm so bored. I'm so dull. No, you're not. You're just not getting an infusion of what you need on a regular basis. It's like when people come and get their vitamin drips, right? The vitamin C shots. It's like, get a vitamin, like get your shot of sisterhood.
Love that. If somebody wanted to, look into your membership or what you do, because I know you offer kind of, a container around this, where can they connect with you to learn more?
This one, well, you can get on my website, drlizdobbins.com. And what I have there right now, I have a sisterhood that happens every other Friday. Love that group. I would love to see like thousands and thousands of women like embracing that. Like I've talked to Spirit myself. I'm like, I would lead 10 of these groups a week in order to keep like the intimacy and the potency of what happens inside of that group. It's so powerful. And I have a retreat in October. That's going to be amazing. I've done many retreats and I have another one coming up in October.
Where is it?
This one's in Arizona.
Perfect. Yeah. Information on the website about it?
Yeah. And then there's I just remember there's a 6-week container called Untamed that's coming up too. That's really like, it's like a deep dive for women who are wanting what we're talking about, that embodiment piece and that way to like start to move through their life through a different lens. And so every week we're going through a different process and a teaching, and you're going to practice bringing that into your life, and you'll do it within the container of sisterhood. So it just, all these things might be gone, but the Holy Wild Sisterhood will still be pulsing through whenever this podcast goes live. I don't even know when it's going to be. So,
well, before all of this happens, so I will put those down below if you guys are listening to this and interested. Definitely go check Liz's work out, and I'm sure she would appreciate a DM too if you guys found this helpful. She's on Instagram and Facebook, and otherwise, Liz, thank you so much for being here and sharing all your wisdom. Listeners, of course, thank you as always for being here as well, and we'll catch you guys on the next show.
Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Thank you, Liz.